Keith is coming in.
All right, great. Thanks for the update, Getty.
Yeah.
Hi, Prof. Carter. Good afternoon. So nice to have you here.
Hi, Prof. Good afternoon. This is Sing Hao. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey guys, good to see you. Looking forward to hear.
Absolutely. Looking forward as well. We'll start when the clock hits 3:05. Yep.
That sounds good. Thank goodness we're indoors. It's raining terribly outside right now.
Yes, raining cats and dogs. I had to close all my windows.
Even where you are, huh?
Shall we begin?
Yes.
All right, great, sure. So hello everyone, thank you for joining us today at the Singapore FinTech Festival Talent Pavilion Masterclass session. My name is Sing Hao from Mastercard's Asia Pacific Product Delivery Team. And with me today, I have my colleague, David Mock from the Asia Pacific Innovation and Customer Solutions team. And on behalf of Mastercard, we would like to sincerely thank Professor Keith Carter, Getty, and Jonah, and the wonderful team at NUS FinTech Lab as well for inviting both of us to be speakers on the Talent Pavilion platform today. It's our great honor to be able to share with you what we think about this space of next generation point of interaction. So the presentation itself will take about 40 to 45 minutes, and we will leave the remaining time for questions and answers from the audience. And of course, we'd like to keep this session as engaging and interactive as possible. So do feel free to leave your comments or questions in the chat box throughout the presentation, and we'll get to them as soon as possible. So without further ado, let me first start off by setting the context for today's sharing. We all know that COVID-19 has been a game changer for digital payments, and it has definitely altered how individuals and businesses are interacting with each other at the point of sale. So this comes in the form of an accelerated shift towards digital payment channels and adoption of contactless payments options. And while this digital acceleration continues to meet customers' commerce needs in this new normal, how consumers and businesses engage at the point of interaction will definitely continue to evolve. And therefore, as part of the agenda of today's session, as you see on the slide here, David and myself will be delving into a few consumer and merchant trends leading to the development and adoption of payment solutions to reshape the way payments are being made and also received. In particular, we will be sharing payments solutions around biometrics, QR, and soft POS. We will also shed some light on Mastercard's role in enabling and proliferating these new payment solutions. So moving on, we'll first start off with some trends and statistics to underscore how the point of sale environment in Asia Pacific is actually evolving rapidly to keep up with the digital change which we see around us today. So first and foremost, we found out that consumer preferences for digital payments have accelerated in recent years. And from the findings, 64% of global e-commerce spending happens within the Asia Pacific region. 49% of Asia Pacific consumers also cited an increase in the usage of contactless payments since the start of last year. And from the same period, 48% of Asia Pacific consumers have been leveraging more mobile wallets. Now, I believe many of you on this call would also share the same sentiments as well and fall into the same category. And in tandem, the payments environment around us has also been transforming. So we see that 67% of consumers have drastically reduced cash in favor of contactless payments, which are perceived to be safer and more hygienic by consumers. There is also a 2.5 times faster growth in contactless transactions versus non-contactless transactions for everyday purchases. Last but not least, industry tailwinds also remain very strong. Facial biometric payments are expected to proliferate, with millions of consumers being registered by digital players for scaled facial biometric payments in the next 5 years. The market for autonomous storefronts is also expected to grow to 4.7 billion by 2026 as consumers increasingly grow on the idea of staffless and self-serve retail environment. So as you can see, all of these trends and statistics as a whole also means that it is time for us to capitalize on this strong momentum around consumers' changing demands, merchant openness, and also strong industry tailwinds to define the next generation of point of interaction. So at this stage, to give everyone a much deeper insight on how rapid digital payments trends have actually been evolving. So here's a very quick illustration of the high-level progression of acceptance points of interaction. Now, if you follow me from the left of the slide, in the past, merchants around us used to only accept cash. And with the advent of card networks over the decades and years, merchants started to adopt card swipe devices. And this eventually progressed to the chip and dip POS terminals, which we still see around us nowadays. And over the last 10 years, contactless payments have proliferated as consumers embrace quicker and more seamless ways to pay. So as the payments acceptance landscape evolves, consumers are increasingly provided choice on methods to pay as well, while merchants looking to innovate on their existing offerings have adopted next generation payment acceptance solution. So we're seeing this in a few forms. Firstly, the use of mobile wallets have become increasingly popular. And next, account-to-account payments are also gaining traction, especially with domestic schemes and Rails gaining adoption with both consumers and merchants. Next, in-app payments are growing as well as consumers store their credentials on file with merchants such as online marketplaces like Shopee or Lazada, and maybe probably even more so over the next few days as we see 11/11 approaching as well. And last but not least, QR-based payments have also become gradually prevalent as a low-cost tool for merchants to adopt touchless digital payments. So again, with all these, Mastercard is at the forefront of driving many of these next generation touchless commerce solutions at the same level of safety and security standards which we apply to our traditional card network as well. And you must be wondering at this point, how is Mastercard actually involved and what are we thinking around this space? So to just provide a clearer idea on that, please allow us to screen a very short video of how Mastercard is participating in the next generation touchless commerce solutions. This video should take about 1 minute.
Consumers are increasingly choosing touchless payments for their everyday needs. That's why we've invested in creating easy ways to make these payments happen. Like when dining out with friends, just scan to order your favorite dishes, then pay. Or even simpler, use the tablet at the table and tap to pay. Looking to stay in? Pay for food delivery by tapping the rider's phone and get right back to your movie. And if you're a small business owner looking to be paid in the same touchless and easy way, innovative solutions like receiving payments through QR code on your card means getting paid is quick, safe, and simple. Isn't it great to know that everything you need is right in your hands? Staying in touch with a touchless future. Priceless. Consumer
All right, we hope you enjoyed the video. So as you have seen, Mastercard is helping touchless commerce proliferate in three main ways, which are quick, safe, and simple. So firstly is the capture of payer credentials through software-based point-of-sale terminal solutions. So SoftPOS enables consumers to make payments on merchants' Android-based enabled devices. This is the SoftPOS solution, which simply requires a cardholder to tap his or her card on a tablet or mobile device to make payment at a merchant. Next will be the capture of payee credentials, as cardholders not only make but receive payments on their card. So QR on card is a Mastercard solution, which I will share more about shortly. This is great for home-based businesses, which we are seeing more of during the pandemic, or merchants who are often on the go. And lastly, the access to merchant digital catalogs, as consumers order and pay through their personal mobile devices for goods and services. This is also known as touchless commerce, as we have seen in the video. And essentially, this allows consumers to check out through their own in-store checkout devices. So let's take a closer look at each of these solutions now and dive a little bit deeper, starting with SoftPOS. So now just imagine that your off-the-shelf phone could actually become a point of sale terminal. As more merchants are now looking to offer cleaner and more seamless contactless payment solutions for their customers, Mastercard has also been actively looking at how we can turn something which everyone almost has, like a smartphone, to an off-the-shelf acceptance point. This is particularly important for merchants who might not be economically ready to invest in a point of sale hardware terminal, which can cost up to a few $100s. Hence, the answer here for them would be through SoftPOS, a contactless acceptance solution that turns any NFC-enabled Android device into a physical point of sale. Now, this would therefore allow merchants to have an option to accept contactless payments directly through their own Android smartphones with NFC functionality. Onboarding for merchants is also pretty hassle-free, I would say. Merchants can almost start using SoftPOS almost instantly, as the online registration process with the acquiring bank takes less than 30 minutes. The solution can be provided as a white label technology to banks as well, and payment players within the industry. So in addition to acting as a POS terminal, SoftPOS can also be integrated with innovative value-added services for the merchants. So firstly, it can record cash transactions, making it very convenient for the merchant to keep a record of all expenses in a single place. Next, the app can also record and store credit transactions as well. This means that it can also send payment ledgers along with a payment link to the customer at the end of the month to ensure accuracy and ease of payments. And last but not least, merchants can also use the SoftPOS app to create a catalog of items which are available to offer convenience in terms of ordering. So on overall, we can see that this solution really helps ease the experience of contactless payments while ensuring hygiene and transaction security. It also offers these merchants a lot more convenience, as they now do not need to invest in a piece of hardware, but rather they can just use an off-the-shelf phone instead. So moving on, our contactless payments solution of course extends beyond SoftPOS as we start to think of micro and P2P businesses that wish to offer similar hygienic and seamless acceptance services, but might not be ready for a licensed terminal. So to service this particular segment of merchants, Mastercard innovated by thinking how we can increase the value of cards cardholders already have in their pockets, while leveraging technology which cardholders are increasingly adopting and are very familiar with as well. So this has given rise to QR on card, Mastercard's solution which enables cardholders and SMEs to accept cashless payments using the QR code printed on their cards. By combining the touchless acceptance point with the card, QR on card enables payments to be much more flexible and also empowers card holders, mainly the smaller merchants, to spend and earn on the same payment instrument. This solution also does not require cardholders to give out personally identified information such as your mobile phone number to receive payments. So this provides them with an important layer of security and also a peace of mind. Furthermore, it helps banks displace cash and strengthen the cardholder relationship. Moreover, it also reduces the operational costs with fewer chargebacks, resulting in increased revenues from electronic payments for the banks. The card also makes it easier for small businesses to receive digital payments in a fast and flexible manner while on the move, such as when making deliveries or serving customers in store. This is especially so for micro and P2P businesses who operate more on a go basis. So ultimately, QR on card really serves as an essential digital onboarding tool for businesses which are just starting to incorporate digital payments solutions within their business roadmap. And there has been a lot of interest around this solution. So Mastercard and the Bank of Baroda Financial Solutions Limited, one of the largest banks in India, have actually launched the first QR on card deployment in May this year, 2021. And we are definitely continuing to work on other potential launches within this Asia Pacific region as well. And next, moving on, we have also been thinking how consumers can actually use the device which they have in hand to enjoy a more seamless in-store checkout experience and leveraging their own mobile phone as a checkout device as well. So consumers are increasingly used to accessing digital menus and in-phone payment checkouts as a more hygienic alternative to handling physical menus and queuing for payments, especially in F&B environments like our cafe nowadays. So the experience is triggered when consumers use their mobile phone cameras to scan a QR, which directs them to the merchant branded website. Again, this process is truly touchless, convenient, safe, and secure. It also leverages our card on file and click to pay technology. So just in general, card on file basically refers to when a cardholder authorizes a merchant to store his or her card payment details and bill the stored card account for any purchase of goods or services. Click to pay refers to a one-click checkout option that you can use when you're making a purchase on a website, mobile app, or any other digital channels, for example. So again, to sum up, through the entire customer journey, merchant technology providers will also have the opportunity to integrate Mastercard's many value-added services to merchants and consumers, such as our digital loyalty solutions, to the entire experience to reward consumers and also to incentivize usage. So now that you have learned slightly more about how Mastercard is innovating within the space of the next generation point of interaction through soft POS, QR on card, and touchless commerce, I'll now like to hand over the time to David Mock at this stage of the presentation to dive deeper into biometrics payments and what Mastercard is actually thinking around this space. David, it's the time all yours.
Yep, thank you, Sing Hao. So I think what Sing Hao has done so far is to articulate two trends. The first trend is really the movement from hardware to software. And the second trend is moving away from a physical menu and POS to a digital menu and online checkout. The third trend I want to bring up is something that's emerging, not something that we immediately see right now, that we're moving away from a device-based environment to a remote-based environment. So it's important to unpack what this means to begin with, and how do we delineate some of the different biometric solutions that exist in the market out there, and what is Mastercard's role to play in each of them. So let's start off by defining what, when we think about biometric payments, there's device-based biometric payments. These are avenues in which it's still authentication focused, in which a consumer still requires their own device to identify themselves. Think about when you use Face ID to unlock your phone, that requires your device. Well, some of our solutions that Mastercard enables our partners to use to be able to facilitate authentication solutions is Mastercard ID Check Mobile, which once again leverages our technology that's incorporated into our partners' applications. We also have biometric cards. So as you can see, that little black spot on the card itself is to allow for the consumer to use their thumb, their fingerprint, to hold on to that particular portion. And when they tap it onto the merchant's contactless terminal, this authorizes them to make a transaction that is higher than the regular limit of what is regulated for that particular market. For example, in Singapore, it's $200. That is the contactless limit. And therefore, this allows an extension and an increase of the transaction value. So that's device-based. So what do we see the future coming up? And what are the trends that we're seeing emerging to begin with? That's really remote biometric payments, where identification and authentication no longer requires the consumer's device for them to identify themselves in the merchant environment. So some examples that we see is in China, for example, where KFC is really allowing WeChat and Alipay users to be able to make payments after registering themselves once on the application to use their face in store. So what this means is practically you no longer need to bring your mobile phone out upon initial registration. However, as a company, we do feel that there are challenges that exist around the reliable identification and security of various biometric service providers as they scale across the market. So we definitely see that, as more and more players emerge in this space to enable biometric solutions, the level of safety and security is something that is really worth double clicking on. So let's move into the next slide where we can talk about the different concerns that on how these solutions will meet consumer expectations. Let's look at three main categories of stakeholders we need to think about. And firstly, we look at merchants. Merchants would want a safe and scalable way to offer such a new solution to reduce their requirements for staff, but they also need to consider how much it will cost and whether it's reliable to do so at a reasonable rate as well. From a cardholder perspective, understandably, while this technology is cool, cardholders also will be anxious about security and privacy concerns when it comes to the topic of biometric payments, even though they're looking for something convenient and they're looking for something simple, they are definitely concerned about how all these credentials are being used. And from a bank issuer standpoint, they'll definitely want to have visibility and control of how their credentials are being provisioned and how they're being used for new ways to pay. So the question really lies, how can we be sure that these payments are secure? And then how can we rely on these new biometric industry providers that are emerging out there? And that's where we really think about from our company's role. Mastercard is a company that has really grown over the last 50 plus years in ensuring that payments are safe and secure, that there are adequate measures around the way funds are transacted and around the payment experience itself. So that's where we really put on our thinking hat to start to come up with a solution that will ensure that as the industry starts to proliferate in this space, that there will be a safe development and deployment of such solutions. So as we move on, I can introduce the solution. So Mastercard's biometric checkout program is really one that we have over the last 2 years or so been developing to set a series of network standards, specifications, and guidelines that will outline what we expect as a network that addresses security, performance, and the privacy of biometric payments. So some examples of this would be, for example, if you basically have submitted your biometric, for example, your face onto a particular network to this biometric service provider, that this image should not be stored and it should not be sent across the cloud. It should instead be scrubbed and replaced by a cryptographic hash that is shared across so that it's non-decipherable and non-traceable back to the individual. We also ensure that from a best practices and the industry standard standpoint, there are certain requirements such as a false positive rate and a false negative rate being lower than a certain ratio based on what the industry best in class standards are. So by putting all these standards in place that include aspects like network tokenization, we ensure that any payment that proliferates through biometric service providers that are certified by us will guarantee security, performance, and privacy of biometric service providers. So in this framework, that allows for the biometric innovators to then work better closely with our customers with the knowledge that they are certified and they have been going through our level of certification provided by our various cybersecurity laboratories as well. And we, of course, we bring in various Mastercard assets to ensure that each of these payment solutions are seamless and secure. That involves tokenization, leveraging our Mastercard MDES for merchants, which is Mastercard Digital Enablement Services, and our payment gateway as well, to ensure that the right level of network tokenization is provided in the payment transaction itself as well. So that's a program that we have launched in April this year, and we're starting to see more and more of these biometric service providers sign up, participate, and facilitate more safe interactions with the various banks and consumers and merchants as well. As we think about such solutions, it's definitely a worth a thought provoker to think about where biometric payments are likely to proliferate. We think about the use cases of transit, fast food outlets, airport, hotel, petrol stations, and grocery store. But what are the criteria that we think these use cases will succeed? I think there are 3 hypotheses that we have, and we definitely love to see how this pans out in the near future. One is in which is a multi-tenanted environment with a master merchant. So that merchant basically controls the experience, and it definitely makes sense for you to register your biometric credential once on file so that you can seamlessly unlock multiple environments. In another criteria would be hands-free commerce being preferred, for example, at transit or at fast food purchases. Just think of a use case in which you want to go to a store and you perhaps want to get a beer, for example, where your hands are dirty. What if you could use your face to unlock the dispensing of the beer? Wouldn't that be cool and great? And lastly, another use case criteria could be unattended or autonomous retail. Once again, reducing the need for physical manpower in the areas such as grocery stores and petrol stations as well. And moving along, as we think about what that looks like from a consumer standpoint, in terms of the journey of actually signing up and actually availing of such a solution, let's break it down into something that is more tangible and easier to relate to from a registration and to the purchase standpoint. Registration for such a payment experience will take place either on a consumer mobile application, or it can take place on a merchant tablet or kiosk environment. What we have seen is that, from a registration perspective, in order to provide consistency and quality of the experience, and to ensure that, as we all know that different mobile cameras, they come in different lightings, different settings, and different environments as well, that a kiosk experience would be the best type of practice in which the consumers have a more standardized way of capturing their credential. So in such an environment, for example, a kiosk in a merchant environment, the consumer takes their selfie and they register their payment card details, and therefore what happens is that now the credential is connected to your payment gateway token, and now you're ready for purchase. And thereafter, that's where the magic really begins in the purchase environment, where now with just your facial credential or other biometrics, including your iris or even fingerprint, the camera will be able to identify you and retrieve your ID. You of course have to validate your intent to pay and confirm the payment value as well, and you can then trigger the payment. There are different mechanisms that be included along the way to ensure that the chances of fraud are minimized as well, such as 2-factor authentications or requiring perhaps a 4-digit PIN code that's unique to you as a user. So these are some methods that will still introduce some form of friction, but depending on what level of comfort that the merchant has. But at the end of the day, deviceless once it comes to the purchase environment, at least from the consumer standpoint. So thereafter, we see that, from a overall payment experience standpoint, we can envision a scenario in which integrated living combines access and payments together. So imagine a retail environment in which there's a student campus combined with hotel environment, combined with a retail mall environment, where your common biometric identification can get you through various aspects, from the campus environment to checking in at the hotel/motel, into unlocking your business school room doors, to using your credential and a shopping retail environment, and to basically leverage it in a locker space. So that's the kind of a vision statement that we can imagine the world to be. But of course, in order to get there, this entire ecosystem has to continue to develop. As more and more players get certified and more trust gets built up, such a reality will become more likely in the future. And moving along. In summary, when we think about Mastercard's strategy and when we think about all the different solutions that we have outlined today, it's really boiling down to how we think about the consumer side and the merchant side. So from a consumer perspective, our strategy to enable next generation point of interaction is to widen the consumer's choice of payment credentials to pay using cards, bank account, wallet account, even crypto store value. As some of you may have seen the news that just overnight that we have announced that Mastercard has enabled crypto-linked payments as well, increasing the number of choices in which consumers can make their payments and providing consumers choice in form factors and devices to transact. You prefer plastic? Sure. If you want to use your mobile, definitely. If you are more comfortable with web or app browsers, Mastercard can be enabled in those various solutions which Sing Hao has mentioned as well. When we look at the merchant side, it's about enabling choices as well in terms of the types of merchant devices to exchange data. Traditionally, we have looked at hardware-based terminals that include traditional firmware, even mobile POS type of extensions. Increasingly, as mentioned, we are moving into software-based environments that allow for the merchant to actually accept payments via their existing bring your own device mobile environments, and enabling the choice on channels in which the payment originates. So what we see is that really omni-channel commerce is expected of merchants nowadays. And they want to, from a consumer standpoint, be able to pay however and whenever they want. And therefore, from a merchant perspective, to be able to enable the choice for them to do so. So then if we move along, when we think about all these different factors for merchants to consider acceptance solutions, we can really bucket them into the three lenses of desirability, feasibility, and viability. So all these new solutions that we have talked about need to minimally meet these criteria for merchants to want to consider them. So none of these are rocket science. It's really, in a way, sometimes common sense. But as we think about some of these merchant criteria, it's worth it to look at some of the specific aspects of what the merchants would care about and how do the solutions come about to meet those needs. So let's look at the first bucket of desirability. We look at services that really help them to simplify their day-to-day operations to reduce their costs or reduce friction and increase revenue opportunities with customers. So as Sing Hao has mentioned that soft POS is a solution that Mastercard has been working very closely with different soft POS providers to enable. And the magic really happens in the software environment where the merchants can leverage additional value-added services like accounting software and additional bookkeeping mechanisms to integrate existing services to reduce the merchants' need to reconcile all these different parts of their business. From a desirability standpoint, merchants that consider acceptance solutions will also care about settlement speed. How fast can you access your funds? And how efficiently can you manage your cash flow and operating expenses? So that's the first bucket, desirability. How desirable is this solution for them? The second leg, we think about feasibility. So how easy is it for them to actually participate and use such a solution? We think about the concept of onboarding. So how easy is it to actually onboard, to participate in such a new solution, be it in a payment network scheme or with an e-wallet, for example? Are the ease of onboarding requirements relatively straightforward, or are there many hoops to jump through? And are there many different requirements? Who's the merchant on record? Who's taking on the merchant on record risk? And basically, who is the one who ensures the merchant underwriting? All these are questions that are to be thought through as well. And performance, of course, then in such a digital economy, uptime and solution latency are critical to ensure that merchants would be able to use these solutions with the peace of mind that it wouldn't go down just involuntarily as well. And lastly, we look at the concept of viability. So we definitely think of it from a cost perspective. And what this means is that, from a security point of view, merchants will want to use acceptance solutions that are not so prone, obviously, to fraud and scams. They want to avoid any loss of revenue because disputes, chargebacks are things that are merchants' worst nightmare, because it represents not just a loss of revenue, but having to engage in this really is a time sink and also a resource sink from their perspective. Preventing the loss of revenue without negatively impacting customer experience is a key criteria for them. All this is balanced against value. When we think about all these criteria that we've mentioned, how does it compare against the prices in which their merchant service providers is actually enabling it for them, relative to digital wallets, the domestic participants, and other schemes as well? How do we ensure that we are able to provide all these capabilities that meet the specific merchant segment's needs at a reasonable rates as well? So these are the things to consider, and I really hope that this lends a more practical view of some of the things that merchants really do think about. And moving on. In summary, what we really do see is Mastercard Mastercard's role in terms of bringing the ecosystem together in order to deliver the next generation point of interaction. Number one, we cannot do this alone. We need partners to do it for us. Even though Singhao talked about soft POS as a technology that Mastercard is deeply involved in, we are certifying these software providers from not just a hardware but a software perspective. We need people to be innovating, to be the distribution arms, to be the ones delivering these solutions to the end merchant and the end consumer. Because Mastercard's business model is really a B2B to B, B2B to C type of environment. We definitely work very closely with partners to proliferate our technology, which brings me to the next aspect of technology. What we bring to the table is technology that ensures safety and security, and technology that is relevant for the needs of these new players. They want to be able to push a payment more efficiently into a gateway. They want to push a token into a card-on-file environment. Mastercard has those solutions to enable consumers to make more seamless transactions and for merchants to accept such transactions as well. As shown through how I've walked through the biometric checkout program, we take safety and security of a payment transaction very, very seriously. And that really led to us thinking through how in such a new environment that we can continue to play such a role to be that kind of a gatekeeper and also the custodian of such ensuring that the ecosystem matures in a manner that doesn't compromise what we really believe from a brand standpoint to be really important. And what does this mean? Practically speaking, is that we continue to work with industry service providers to align on the best-in-class standards. We continue to certify them, and we continue to evolve our own rules and frameworks as well. We bring together insights, experience, and designs as well with our best-in-class customer experience teams and various research teams as well to ensure that we are up to date and we work closely with the right partners to ensure that we are constantly ahead of the curve as well. So, all in all, that's really what we have to share today around Mastercard's next generation point of interaction strategy, how we've been thinking through this, and what we're doing at this point of time to proliferate the new way that consumers are expecting to pay and merchants are expecting to allow to pay as well. And once again, I just want to thank Prof. Carter and the NUS FinTech Lab for extending this opportunity to share at the Talent Pavilion as well.
Thank you, Shinhao and David. What an eye-opening presentation. I'm really looking forward, well, with mixed feelings to walking in and just waving a hand or just looking at the cash register and paying. That sounds very fun. Thanks for sharing the next generation that's already here. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you. Happy to take any questions that any of the participants may have. Even Prof yourself, if you have any thoughts, or we're happy to have a discussion as to.
Great. And by the way, everyone, it's a nice Tuesday afternoon. You're welcome to join us on camera as well. And we wouldn't mind if you would to join us in taking a picture with our speakers as well. So if we could do that as part of this and then the Q&A too, that would be wonderful. No matter where you are, we know you might be joining us from the MRT or maybe walking somewhere. All of those are just fine. That's what this Zoom convenience is all about, right? As well. So let's see a few people. Thank you so much. Hey, Sue, good to see you. Kathy, hello. Hey, Ramya.
Hi, Keith.
Tuck Hong is getting extra credit. You've been to so many of the events. Thanks for coming in again, Tuck Hong. Really appreciate that. Hey, Vanessa. Daniel, hello, long time. All right, we've got a few people coming in. We'll take a picture now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. That's 1 and 2. Okay, great. All right, and listen, let's stay with us. Open it up for questions. David and Shinhao are some of the most brilliant people I've met in this space. So use this time to hear from them, as well, to get ahead of what's coming up and how you can be part of it too, or what's going to change for your businesses. I'm kind of curious, David, as you talked about that, being able to pay at checkout, how close are we? Are there places that we can, are there places that are trying this out right now? Or you know, is there a roadmap that says this is a year away or 2 years away in certain markets?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Happy to share. So I can share with you what I've seen globally, and bring it closer to home to see some of the environment. So I'll caveat where I haven't tried it personally myself as well. But what we have seen really, this originated from China. So as mentioned, through KFC and their connections with Alipay. So you're able to firstly register your credential and your biometric within the Alipay environment. And then when you go to a KFC store that has a kiosk, that has a camera as well, that's where you're actually able to avail such a transaction there. So that's where we saw these, the origination, or at least where it started to become more on our radar at that point of time, back in 2019, 18 or so. And then we know that a market in which this is really very strong to begin with is in Japan. So a lot of these biometric service providers, they come from Japan. And the thing is that in the Japan market, they are very strong in technology. They have a lot of these solutions. I give you some names, for example, Hitachi, Toshiba, Fujitsu, NEC. All these are kind of companies that have been very traditionally strong in technology, and they've been exploring these type of technologies. If you were to just Google, you probably find some of them as well. And I think just for latency reasons, I decided not to include one of the videos, but NEC is one of the partners that works very closely with Mastercard to develop some of these standards as well. And what we've seen is that NEC themselves have been doing a lot of these pilots in Japan. So they've been working very closely. And one of the video that I wanted to show was actually on a resort in Japan called Nanki Shirahama. So Nanki Shirahama is a kind of a closed off resort by itself. And it was a pilot in which NEC fully enabled all the different resort environments with the facial biometrics. So upon initial registration, thereafter, every single touch point that basically you can unlock with your face, you can also initiate the payment there as well. So that's what we've seen, in Japan, all across the world, because this is a global program. We've seen this playing out in the rest of the world, even in the MEA region as well, in Middle East. We have seen some players emerge there. From a Mastercard, from a Singapore perspective, what I've seen at least is I think there was a pilot that Cheers did with Visa, I believe, maybe the later part of last year, that involved some aspect of biometrics on file. That's what I've seen. In terms of how ready we are, I would say that actually there are a lot of these smaller players that are already allowing such solutions, or rather they start to proliferate such solutions in market. It's just that from a network standpoint, we don't necessarily endorse them, right? We want to make sure that these guys have passed a battery of tests. They are certified by us, and then before we will call them a Mastercard certified biometric service provider. So those are things that we're practically seeing, and I would say that in the next 1 to 2 years, as this space develops and more and more folks join our program, get certified, it will become more of a reality. But to the point of the vision that I shared around an integrated retail environment in which your biometrics are shared, I don't think that's going to happen so soon, mainly because one of the key aspects of the program that we have set so far is the topic of consent. Consumers need to give consent. So right now, the way it's set up is that these biometrics are set up as a 1:1. So basically, your credential is only tagged to that one merchant. That one merchant cannot share it with other merchants, so to speak. If it's a chain, if it's like a retail outlet, you can, as a consumer, provide your consent to push your biometric credential to other of that retail outlets. For example, if it's Cheers in Singapore has multiple outlets, you could push your token to other environments as well. But we don't see that happening at scale until more and more proof points and more such pilots emerge, and people get to build up their trust. And once the trust is lost, I think the momentum will be lost as well. Recently, I saw the news that Facebook, or rather now known as Meta, they closed down their facial recognition program, right? So that's something that very recently we saw come up, that what I suspect in the near future this might mean is that you lose the ability to auto tag folks, for the better or worse. I mean, so these are emerging trends that we see, and people definitely care about their privacy a lot. So I would say this space remains the clarity of how these will develop will really depend on consumer sentiment, regulatory sentiment as well over the next couple of years.
Thank you so much for answering. Other questions that people may have, Tuck Hong, you're welcome to bring in, or Zoing or Rashma too. I'd love to, if David, you have the link to the video or the name of the Japanese resort again.
Yes.
I would love to take a look at that separately.
Yeah, it's good.
as potential business owners, where could folks on the call here, because some of them are thinking about launching businesses or are launching businesses, how could they work most effectively with Mastercard?
Great question. So I would just assume that the people in the crowd are perhaps merchants and people who are business owners who are looking to accept payments in a manner that really best fits the needs of their business. So when we think about the different solutions that we have brought up over here today, I wanted to just kind of clarify that none of these solutions are directly delivered by Mastercard. Mastercard will always work through our partners to enable such solutions. And our traditional partners have always been the banks. From a bank perspective, there's the issuing bank, which is your cardholder bank. And there's also the acquiring bank, which is in this case, the merchants bank, in this case, your bank, right? In that case, that really facilitates the acceptance of Mastercard solutions. So in this case, you will contact your bank acquirer, who will then be able to enable such solutions for you. So working through the direct party that you already have a relationship with, it could be your local bank like OCBC, DBS, UOB. If you work through fintech as well, we also work with fintech. So we enable these folks to leverage that solution. So of course, if you, as a business owner, if you're interested, you can always pick up the phone with them or contact them and say, hey, I'm keen on that solution. And then that's where they can start to work on that enablement for yourself, or if they are not already doing that for you.
Got it. And some of the folks here also have ideas, aspirations to set up fintechs. You have an innovation lab, you have some other things that are available as well. Could you share a little bit about how a fintech startup could kind of connect in with some of your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So just for everyone's benefit, this is not scripted. So definitely when we think about all the different ways in which fintechs can work with Mastercard, we are seeing that fintechs are playing a really important role. And there are multiple ways in which Mastercard works with fintechs now, and fintechs of different sizes as well. So a bit of a caveat is that generally we definitely like to work with fintechs of a certain scale, so that we can ensure that at this, the fintech has demonstrated proof of concept. They have demonstrated the product market fit. They have established desirability, feasibility, and viability components of their business. And we have different programs that allow for Mastercard to work with such fintechs. So, for example, we have a Start Path program that allows fintechs who are of at least Series A size around there, Series A onwards, to basically apply for this program, and that allows it goes through a series of rigorous evaluations. Each year we get about 2,000 applications and we select about 40. So it's about 5% success rate. And we basically take these startups and we will introduce them to our partners and our banking partners, our merchant partners. We help to facilitate pilots with them and to foster closer collaboration. And these startups, they come in all different shapes and sizes. They solve payment solution issues. They in the areas of, for example, QR, in soft POS, as mentioned, they go into analytics and non-payment related matters that are more tangential. They go into blockchain as well. So basically a whole spectrum of solutions that we don't typically touch as a company, but we want to work closely with them to enable our partners. That's one. So another aspect of how players who are looking to become fintechs and how they could work with Mastercard is if they're looking to issue Mastercard cards. We have a solution called, or rather with a program called Mastercard FinTech Express. And Mastercard FinTech Express basically is I wouldn't say it's an accelerated program that allows for these fintechs to issue Mastercard cards faster, right? So it's a more accelerated onboarding process that minimizes the licensing kind of heavy burden on the fintech to jump through many hoops and just jumping through the right ones that are required so that you can start issuing cards. So we have worked through some of that, and there's a team within Mastercard who owns such a program. And during FinTech Festival 2019, we announced the first FinTech Express partner that has worked with Mastercard to issue cards. I believe it was Rapid, if I recall, but yeah. So those are two main ways, and there are others as well. There's a Mastercard Engage program, and Mastercard Engage program is to allow fintechs to really who enable Mastercard solutions to be part of our sort of a network to drive preference whenever, for example, I'll give an example, right? So if you have if you're enabling contactless payments via wearables. So those are things that we rely on certain partners to do. And maybe you don't wish to wear an Apple Watch or a smartwatch. You like your Rolex, for example. We work with partners such as Tappy. So Tappy is based in Hong Kong, I believe, and they basically insert the chip into the wristband of the watch, and they tokenize the chip within the band, and that allows you to make the transaction at your terminal using the same Rolex watch that you love, right? And so the strap comes from Tappy, and then and therefore that's a partner that we work with closely, and they're part of our Engage program. So they're part of the directory of partners that we work with, and we will recommend for our banking partners to work with if they want to enable such solutions or promote such solutions. So three main areas actually. Very long answer.
Thank you. Love it. Love it. Great comprehensive answer. So many different ways to go ahead. Any questions, other questions for Mastercard? I think it's really interesting to be able to work with a company that's your size and scale, because you've seen so much. And as a partner, you have access to so many markets. So right away, a company can jump in and really participate in a big way with your payment rail. So, and at the same time, it's neat that you're not just clamming up, you're actually opening up your platform, your system, and building the ecosystem, the whole thing. We had a great discussion yesterday on collaboration with Patrick Tay, and during the jobs report this morning, and how important it is to work together. Maybe since no one has a question, what is the culture like at Mastercard in terms of working there and the people?
I'll leave it to Sing Hao to share. So I think I've done enough talking.
Yep, very happy to share, and maybe of course David can add on his inputs as well. So just a bit of background, I've been in Mastercard for about 2.5 years now. I graduated from Singapore Management University back in 2019. And I guess for me, when I was considering a company to join back then as a full-time career, of course, the culture is one of the top 3 criteria which I look out for as well, in terms of the leadership, the people around me, the teams, the departments, and the structure. So I actually did an internship with Mastercard back in 2018 for a period of 3.5 to 4 months in the Singapore account management team. And that was my first exposure to Mastercard's culture. And that was the period when I actually could get myself involved in a lot of other initiatives within the entire business as well. And that was actually the main reason why I wanted to convert back as a full-time management associate in 2019 upon graduation. So I think for me, one main thing which stood out and which is very, very close to my heart is, of course, the idea of mentorship. I really believe in the transformative power of mentorship, the idea of having someone senior within the company, a peer like David, or someone even senior in an executive position to actually guide you through your work and guide you through your professional and personal life. That was exactly what I found when I was an intern. So that actually drew me very close to Mastercard as a company, as a company which really cares for its business and also cares for its people primarily. So I think during the pandemic, over the last 1.5 years, they really showed and displayed a lot of empathy and compassion for all our colleagues as well. Of course, at the height of the pandemic 2020, there were no COVID-related layoffs from Mastercard. Our CEO was very firm on that. He came out on media and he also mentioned that publicly. So we are all very blessed, and I am very blessed to be part of this awesome family as well, with great people around us to work hard together to strive for strong business excellence, business goals, but we are also very good friends, and we have that camaraderie also within the company, which allows us to work better as teams. So I think very, very excellent. I will not do justice to the culture within a short few minutes answer. So if anyone on this call, students who are looking to join as interns or future graduates, you can drop David or myself a LinkedIn message, and we'll be happy to have a chat with you to give you more insights on our culture.
All right, Shin Hao, thank you so much. That was a very comprehensive answer as well. So really appreciate that. Everyone, this has been Mastercard sharing, and it's certainly enlightened me. Thanks a lot, David, for coming in today.
Most welcome. The pleasure is ours.
Thanks
Yep, likewise. Thank you so much, Professor.
Yep. And now we have another event coming up. But before we go, David and Shin Hao, can I ask you, can you just quickly share your LinkedIn profiles here? So
Sure.
that way everyone can connect in with you. These are really nice guys. So go ahead and connect with them. They'll be willing to talk more for sure. So just respect their time, of course, but connect. This is what FinTech is all about. No company, no person is an island. So Getty, you want to share the screen for the next event, and we're going to move you guys over to the 4 o'clock event. This is going to be where we'll get to hear from the Diana Ling, who's going to be moderating a panel. She's our instructor and also Chief Operating Officer at Dr. World, which is a Raffles medical startup company, which is pretty neat, changing the landscape and the way that we access medicine. And you'll get to hear from Glenn and Don and Doobie and Peiwen and Shankar, who all graduated, went through the NUS FinTech SG program. And with that, I definitely encourage you to check that out if you haven't gotten into it, but you're getting more and more excited about, hey, this is not a bad field to get into. Come join us over there. And then I'm putting in the chat room here a link to the FinTech SG program. We have an information session this Friday, November 12th and 3 p.m. So right here in the same Zoom, come out and listen and get ready to learn as well. So with that, thanks again, Mastercard. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we'll get over to the next session.
Yeah. So can we, for those who we will auto move you into the room 8. So we hope that you will be able to stay on with us from this session 4 to 5. And then after 4 to 5 is also another session, which is a payment and blockchain by Ripple. So hope you guys stay with us from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah, Ripple payment and blockchain, you're going to get your hands dirty and try out the Ripple network.
Yes,
so
yes,
check that out.
So,
okay, guys.
Yeah. So see you all. So we will move you all to room number 8.
Yeah? As well.
Yeah. Thanks, Maria.
Okay.